Podcast excellence since 2005. This is the King of Podcasts radio network, kingofpodcasts.com.
Depraved and Debaucherous talks about the movie The Substance, and there are no spoilers I could possibly give you to help explain what this movie's all about.
We are all a little depraved and debaucherous. Here is the King of Podcasts.
And what I mean by that is that if I try to explain what the movie's about and how it ends, I think it would be very difficult for me to say. Thanks for joining me on the program. This is King of Podcasts, and yes, The Substance, starring Demi Moore, Margaret Qualley, Dennis Quaid, among others. It's not like this movie is a whole lot of dialogue. This movie wasn't one of the movies that you might have looked for to watch in the theaters this weekend. I mean, I never even saw a promo or a trailer for this. I just happened to see the movie billboard in front of my theater. And that's it. I went into this just knowing what basically what the summary of the movie was going to be, and knowing that Demi Moore was going to be in it with Margaret Qualley, and Margaret Qualley, by the way, Andie MacDowell's daughter, who I also saw in the movie Drive Away Dolls, and Dennis Quaid. That's all I knew about this. This movie apparently is going to be Oscar nominated, because if you look at the Rotten Tomatoes score, it's through the roof. But yeah, this movie was ridiculous, and it actually did come out. And I'm not even sure what's the best way to explain it. 90% on Rotten Tomatoes from the critics, and 69% from the popcorn meter. And so just to give you an idea what some of the reviewers are saying, you have one reviewer saying this is a film unlike any other you will see right now. It will not be to everyone's taste. For this reviewer who craves originality, it is a winner. Deep within all the oozal spinal fluids and postulant growths here, there's a kernel of credibility. The Substance plunges us into the deranged, disorienting, emotional carnage of menopause in a way that few other films have managed. And then Caroline Farjat's movie is about as subtle as a spinal tap, another reviewer says. Another reviewer, this disturbing, traumatizing, and highly entertaining film is a hyperbolic product of body horror and is nothing you've ever seen before. I mean, what is the best way to go and explain this movie? Just to give you an idea of what it's all about. So here's what I have in the description. So I'm going to just read it out a little bit and then just kind of give some extra comments to it. In a world obsessed with youth and perfection, The Substance explores the dark side of beauty culture and the immense pressure women face to conform to unrealistic beauty standards. So Demi Moore is an aging TV star. It's basically her like playing Jane Fonda back in the 80s, the Jane Fonda workout. And it's a bit of an 80s tinge to it as well. And like I said, there are spoilers to this. I'm going to tell you this off the bat. But it's no way possible that I could spoil this movie for you, because the way I describe it here will not even come close to you having a reason not to see it. You have to see the spectacle for yourself. I have never seen a movie like that. The only movie I could think of that even came close to this was the movie Sorry I Did Not Bother You. And it was Lakeith Stanfield and Tessa Thompson, I think it was in it. And if you know how that movie ended, another movie that just went down a path I did not expect, but it went off the deep end. The Substance does the same thing. Now, the plot made sense. And that's the part I want to really get into, because I think what they're trying to say here is quite important. And listen, we were talking about beauty culture and the pressure that women face to conform to unrealistic standards. We've talked about this many times on this program because of the fact that I've talked about The Manipulated Man, Esther Villar. As I've talked about that movie before, many times before, just remember that I've constantly talked about this in the area of beauty. It might not be one of those things that everybody looks for, but you know what? I just feel like this is very important. And so I want to just bring back what I've talked about in the book, The Manipulated Man. Because this is something that you got to really understand. it is a part of a stereotype that for those women that feel like they need to go ahead and hold on to men and the feministic ideals that come in, because Coraline Farget is a feminist, self-proclaimed. This movie definitely gives from that perspective. And the idea is that if you look at the movie and the couple hours that this movie's going on, it's basically porn. I mean, from the beginning that you see Demi Moore getting ready to go ahead and take the substance, okay, which in the plot, this is not going to be giving away too much. The only way the substance works, so that for the fact that she can go ahead and live as a younger version of herself or rejuvenated as a young woman, there's a whole regimen that needs to be done. But what Demi Moore's character gets to do, Elizabeth, she herself is not going to live in that body of this younger body. The substance is going to create a new body. Not even like as if she's making a baby. It's another creature, another human being comes out of her. And that's why you see in the trailer for the movie or the billboards, you see the back of her naked body being stitched up because that's where the body comes out of. And it turns into a young woman. And, they show Margaret Qualley as well, naked, perky tits. She has, has a very young, nubile look. Like it's an opposite of Demi Moore. But the truth is Demi Moore looks amazing. Okay, yeah, you might look at her face and you can see there's a little bit of what she's done in her skin treatments to go ahead and keep herself as young as she can face-wise. The rest of her body, she looks 20 years younger. Easily 20 years younger. And she did a great job in this movie. Listen, the acting was quite good. I must say that. But what they tell in this story and the direction that this director likes to go, this writer and director decides to go with this, is very much giving me a lot of thoughts when it comes to beauty culture and what she was trying to portray and what she was trying to give as a message in this movie as a result. So as I mentioned, Esther Villar has had quite a perspective on beauty culture being a tool women use to manipulate men. Now, in this movie, it's more of the way where men are using the youth and beauty when they are in positions of power. And for the most part, the men are either dumb and stupid, like the next door neighbor, or they're narcissistic and powerful and, very simple-minded, like the network executive played by Dennis Quaid, excuse me. So here's a couple of things that Esther Villar has said before. Women have preserved this baby look for as long as possible so as to make the world continue to believe in the darling, sweet little girl that she once was. She relies on the protective instinct in man to make him take care of her. It would appear very short-sighted to encourage such an ideal of beauty, for how can a woman hope to maintain it beyond the age of 25? And what on earth is a man to do with a grown-up face when he has been manipulated into only considering helpless, appealing little girls to be creatures of beauty? Now, what is being said here and what is being portrayed is that there's a demographic that prefers in Hollywood and just in entertainment that, your celebrities, your influencers, in many cases, they're expected to be attractive. For your women, for the most part, 99% of them are expected to be attractive. And that's the idea. But then if they are not, then if they are not able to go ahead and sustain those beautiful looks and they age over time, which most women, that's what's obviously going to happen, well, then this particular network executive decides, well, she's, off the pasture. She's not worth being around anymore. They're going to let her go. And they make the point that this character is turning 50 years old or is 50 years old. But they don't clarify that. But either which way, since she's being replaced, she doesn't want anyone to replace her. She wants to still be in the spotlight. So the thing is that for Demi Moore's character, Elizabeth, to stay in the spotlight, to have all the adulation, the stardom, the popularity, the riches, all of that, she must continue to be young. And so she decides to go this route. The idea is that for 7 days, she'll get to go ahead and live in the younger body. And maintenance has to be done in a certain way. But then for 7 days, she has to switch back to the old body and live in the older body. But any kind of deviation whatsoever, even the slightest deviation from the regimen, and things can change on both of them. And that's what happens. So we see the two sides of young, dumb, and stupid, and the other side of old, bitter, and upset, and resentful. And all that comes into here. So it's part of the thing I think too is that you get to just see the side of women and how they might react. And there's a volatility where both of them can't work together to both kind of live off of each other and what they have. But that's the part that happens. There's the part that women in their lifetime, they are blessed with youth and beauty, whichever youth and beauty that might be, because as a young woman, you have that beauty. There are women that don't even recognize they have a beauty within them because they have been subjected to such ridicule. And there's only so much that you could do as a family member, whether you're a father or an uncle or a cousin or whatever, a male figure, family member that can encourage a young woman that she's beautiful and she has more to her beauty, more to give than just her beauty. And that her beauty is going to help her attain many different things in her life to where she will gain the wisdom when she is more mature. And in many cases, you can kind of still hold on to both in some ways because beauty can change. The eye of the beholder is all that there, but there's a change to it. Esther Villar says the beauty culture is a deceptive strategy employed by women to exploit men's ingrained preferences, and she criticizes the focus of youthful beauty, highlighting its fleeting nature and the potential consequences for women as they age. But that's the part that comes in here, is that we look at the youthful beauty here that Margaret Qualley bestows in this movie and what she does with it. And, as a guy, I can see the appeal in both. Personally, in just this case alone, I would prefer more to Demi Moore's type because her body, and I was talking about this because, I was with, as a husband and wife that I worked for full time. And it just happened to be that Brandy, I'm shouting you out here on the program, she decided she's the wife of the husband and wife that I work for. She insisted she wanted to go ahead and get together for a movie because that I'm a big movie buff. I go to the movies every weekend. And she's like, well, what movie are you going to see this weekend? I told her and I said, okay. And of all movies to go and pick, this is the one I picked, but it's still funny. But one of the things we noticed that in the movie itself, and I agree with this too, that there's something to Demi Moore when you look at her. And this is something she actually talked about herself when it comes to the movie that was interesting about her own feelings on the toxic culture. And this is what she said about herself back at the time. Now that she thinks of herself as a grandmother who lives alone, it's hard to kind of look at that. She said that, quote, I put so much pressure on myself. This is Demi Moore. When she's asked about the value she had placed on her attractiveness in her past. And she says, and I did have experiences of being told to lose weight. And all of those, while they may have been embarrassing and humiliating, it's what I did to myself because of that. She talked about when she was doing the 1993 movie Indecent Proposal, she would ride a bike every day from her home in Malibu to Paramount Studios in Hollywood, about 30 miles each way. She was nursing a baby at the time. She was about 5 or 6 months old when she was shooting that, feeding the baby throughout the night, getting up in the dark with a trainer, with a headlamp, biking all the way to Paramount, wherever, even on location when we were shooting, and just shooting a full day, 12-hour day, and starting all over again. And just the idea of what I did in my body is so crazy, it's so ridiculous. And remember, this is the same Demi Moore that got to be the highest paid woman in the movie business. She was given a $12.5 million salary to do the movie Striptease that other women in Hollywood demanded, but got bigger paychecks themselves. And Demi Moore looked amazing in that movie. Again, there's one point where they really give the toxicity of the beauty culture. She talks about where she's getting ready to go on a date, looking in the mirror, applying makeup, and then purposely smears it. And she said it was very tough for her to go and do that scene because I think many, of us have been trying to make something better. We just keep making it worse. and it was one of the most heart-wrenching moments in the whole film, and it was at least 15 takes each time, and so by the end, my face was raw. And she used to think about, in retrospect, about that she might have lost something in her looks. She says that, I like my face, I like so chubby. I have no angles, I have nothing. And then you're like, yeah, but now it's like loose. I wouldn't mind some of that chubbiness back in the right places. But one of the things I just noticed about Demi Moore and who she is and how we've always had a thing about her because of just, there's something sexy about her. And it's not something you can necessarily just go ahead and just point out. I don't think it's really something that you can kind of just explain. But it's not just the fact that Demi Moore is beautiful. I think she's sexy as well. And there's just something about her. And, when we see her full frontal nudity throughout the movie in this particular role, whether as this character Elizabeth or we see her later on as the character Sue from Mark Equality, there's just something sexy about a mature Demi Moore and the way her body looks. I mean, there's nothing out of place. And I think, for her to be 61 years old, she's still got a bikini body is incredible. But while I can go ahead and look at it from a perspective of, I find a lot of women very beautiful, there are a lot of people that really get put into this beauty culture, the fact that men are supposed to go and perceive women as a certain look because of how the beauty industry expects us to go and look at people, expects us to look at women or men in that matter. And that's the part I don't like either. I mean, part of it is about the age. Part of it is about what are the designers looking to go and create for the bodies they want it to be on, things like that. The French filmmaker Caroline Farget talked about how she wanted to go and have Demi Moore work in this movie, someone who wasn't just known fame intimately, but someone who could accurately embody its fickleness. She said, I had to find an actress who symbolizes stardom, someone who knows what it's like to receive love from the people who look at you, but also knows what it's like to lose those eyes. Now, the same for Demi Moore. This was, with this movie, The Substance, they did the best performance of her career. Not only a radical departure of some corners of the media insist it is. So a lot of women, a lot of Hollywood critics are praising this movie for what it is. Not all, but look, here's the thing. Now, this is from the guy's perspective I'm going to take from Barstool Sports that also spoke on this movie, just to make the point of it. So I'm going to take one critic that's going to go and give a comment on what this movie's all about so you can get to find out for yourself.
I'm blown away by this in the fact that the movie was 2 hours, 20 minutes, a little bit longer, that's fine. The first hour 45 are outstanding.
I agree.
A perfect
That's pretty good
movie.
I wouldn't say perfect.
There is a message. It is innovative. It is well acted. It is beautifully directed. The last 30 to 40 minutes.
That's right.
Is the worst piece of film ever made. There is. So the concept is brilliant. I've never heard.
Now, I'm going to go and say this with this particular writer from Barstool Sports, Stephen Chia, that said the movie was going really good for about a good hour, 40 minutes or so. 40 minutes, they decided to go in a different direction because the two characters, Elizabeth and Sue, the younger version of Elizabeth, they let themselves go on what they were doing, and things got out of control. All leading up to the pressure of this new starlet of Sue being pushed forward because she has the most popular aerobics show on the network. This is like old school television. And she's being vetted to go ahead and host a large New Year's Eve special on the network, which would have a whole lot of audience watching that night. That was the idea they were going with. And so you look at how they present Sue throughout. One of the things they keep positioning in this movie is the fact that Elizabeth has to go and look at a billboard outside of her large, posh condo overlooking the Hollywood, Los Angeles, and she sees a big billboard, first of all, of the new show with Sue that took over her show, and then seeing her looking like Cinderella as part of this New Year's Eve special. And so that tortures Elizabeth's character, and then that's why she starts going out of control. And that's what happens. But the idea of creating full-blown body horror, and I wouldn't say it was the worst thing. Like, it's memorable for the last 40 minutes. You can't forget it. I just think it was a train wreck. But it was an awfully bad train wreck. I know what she was trying to do. Coraline, I get what you were trying to do in this. But man, this was like going on the deep end, and I never thought I would see. Okay, let me just put it to you like this. So a lot of prosthetics are being used in this. They had to create 36,000 gallons of blood to go as part of the final act in this movie. Okay. And everything they go along with it. But they make the whole point about it. I mean, I get the appeal of what they were trying to go and portray as the younger model of Demi Moore's Elizabeth Sparkle to create Sue, and everything being put together in terms of Margaret Qualley not necessarily having the body for to combat it with Demi Moore. We're not going to go ahead and go with that, but just looking at a young face, being able to put on the smile, the bright eyes. I mean, she's got very pretty eyes. Margaret Qualley, beautiful eyes, by the way, on her. But she is, she's very attractive, but also just in a different way, just doesn't have, it's like we can see a Margaret Qualley being used, especially for her face, in like makeup ads or hair ads or other things, all the kind of stuff that's going on, okay? Because she has a very traditional, like you look at her at a Hollywood audition, she would go ahead and get a role, and that's what she's done. Again, also comes across from her mom because, Andy McDowell's gorgeous and always has been without all those curls. But the thing is now that we're at the point where you have this movie being looked at right now about Hollywood misogyny and body image. And that's the part that I feel bad about, is because this movie does really put it in your face about body culture, the beauty culture as well. And just saying, there is the thought process from this filmmaker that she wants to go ahead and say that that's not right for Hollywood to still be old fashioned in their ways when it comes to like this casting couch kind of mentality. And they didn't do anything necessarily to her in the movie. Like, there was no mistreatment. It was just the manipulation, the narcissism, and, the use of her as an object more than a person. But what they showed as well is this Sue character was just an object. It really didn't have anything else that we got out of her. So when you look at her, she's not well-spoken. She's not necessarily, anything more than just an object that just looks right on the camera. And the network people love her, and they think, well, she's great for what they're doing with this here. But they think that Demi Moore's character, Elizabeth Sparkle, offers nothing because she's older. And so what I'm looking for to try to make sense of this is that I want women to realize they don't need to be one or the other. That, for me, I think there has to be something where Hollywood and fashion runways and models and influencers and celebrities being used for whatever they want to do, for whatever kind of clothes they're going to try to make them fit in, for whatever kind of makeup they think they're going to be in, all that. You want to go ahead and focus yourself in that way, whatever. But for everyday people, I hope that young women that listen to this program, that you're not caught up in that whole kind of bunk about what celebrities and what influencers and what high profile people out there. And influencers can also just be Instagram models out there showing themselves, and that you might feel an envy to them. You might feel jealous of them. You might feel that you're inferior to them. No, you're not. Because I've always said to many women before, don't look at yourself that you need to be as pretty as somebody else. You just realize you are as pretty. You don't need to be prettier or compare yourself to somebody else, because you reach a certain level of beauty that many other women bestow. You just need to know that you made the cut. You don't need to be the most beautiful out there. And there's not anything you're going to try to do to necessarily feel like there's any products or any other solutions out there that are going to help you find yourself more beautiful, which is the one part I really agree with this in this movie. There's nothing you can do to turn back time. And there's nothing that's out there that's going to absolutely be going to make you beautiful as you are. So make at this point, there's not a whole lot of makeup on Margaret Qualley's character, Sue. Meanwhile, Demi Moore feels like she needs to put on quite a bit of makeup to enhance herself when she doesn't need it. Because everything that's being added on that is supposed to be enhancing beauty, I don't think enhances beauty. When natural beauty surpasses anything that it could be enhanced to someone that's beautiful. I mean, there's things you could probably do that might add a little bit to, if it's eyeshadow or mascara or eyelashes or foundation or whatever you might think that might help to just, balance out the face and the look, give more of a fresh expression. Okay. But I don't think it makes much of a difference. I'm still of the sense of all natural. Give me a woman that just got up out of bed and how she looks. But that's something that's not that easy to go ahead and pass along and recommend to other people out there, because we're all kind of programmed to the idea that a beauty standard is a beauty standard. How else would the beauty industry that makes multi-millions of dollars be able to go ahead and keep as much women as they can to keep buying and buying and buying? That's why the reason there's like Ulta Beauty that makes so much money off of their things, or Sephora, or all these other places that do makeup, or do, any clothing stores. If they did not have the beauty standards that are put in place, which are impossible beauty standards. Let's make that clear too. Because what this movie, The Substance, also does is that the idea of body image and beauty culture, the idea of beauty that is put in women's heads, is so out there and is so impossible to reach. And it changes. Because there are women that look a certain way and then they're not the same anymore because the hair's not the same anymore. The face and the look that what somebody's looking for doesn't look like it should anymore, because things continue to change. I disagree with that. But it's constantly that whole idea that women are made to go and feel like there's an inferiority about themselves. And I see it all the time. I go to the mall and I say to myself, woman feels like she's gained a couple extra pounds. She doesn't want to show her belly button. She doesn't want to show her belly too much. She wants to cover it up. So if she's wearing sweatpants or she's wearing leggings, she's going to pull it up. High-waisted. Or if a woman feels like that she might not have the body to go and show, if she wants to go and show cleavage or whatever else of her body, and she wants to start covering up. Like who is it that's making her think that she can't show herself in the way she wants to look? Like how many young women have to be put out there to have to feel like, if they gain a couple pounds or if they just have a look of themselves that is not ideal? Part of it is that there is this beauty sickness that women have, that they feel like they have to portray a certain look. They have to be a certain look or else they can't wear the clothes that other women wear, because they have to look like the models that they see out there. They have to see the Instagram models, the influencers, the celebrities. Like when I see some women talk about, I met these influencers at a event and I didn't realize they could be so much prettier than I thought. Don't think that way. Look at yourself more in a lens and give yourself some room to say, you know what? You don't need to be so critical. There's no need for a critical lens on a woman on how she gauges her beauty. And that it doesn't necessarily matter about what other people say back to you. So the validation or the endorsement that you might get, that's never going to compare to what it's going to be when you feel like how you look in the mirror is good. And that you're confident and you're comfortable. Which is what Demi Moore talks about. Having to go ahead and get used to the fact of looking at yourself in the mirror and seeing yourself not being the same woman as before. And what she did to herself to try to go ahead and create and sustain a beauty image, which, I don't know anybody that ever looked at her and said that she didn't look beautiful in every movie role she was in. I mean, hell, she held up pretty good without having hair on in G.I. Jane and still looked pretty good. A lot of guys will there's a lot of guys where I don't know anybody of guys in my circle that would go ahead and like turn down Demi Moore then or now, personally. But that's where we're at. And so I want that to be a point to be put at this. But let me tell you, I would totally say it's not a movie. The Substance is not going to be a movie I will ever go and watch again. I don't think I could go ahead and go through that part. It would be tough to watch a second time because the gore and the blood that comes out of this movie is so extreme. But, I mean, it's worth taking a shot to go and watch it again and see what you think, because it was quite crazy. And, seeing a lot of gratuitous nudity throughout, or seeing, all this pornographic kind of feel to the whole movie, take that with the blood and gore. Because overall, the substance, I will at least say, I might not give it the best grade in the world, but the substance of the movie was very depraved and debaucherous.